Sur, ¿no? Creo que es un proyecto colaborativo.
A different way of thinking and a different way of building things.
And it is also a unifying vision. It's not just a city initiative.
Je crois que le succès de cet événement montre qu'il y a une aspiration plus grande qu'autrefois à goûter la création, a aimer l'art.
Es una propuesta también territorial y probablemente contrahegemónica.
Lo que me permitió BIENALSUR fue expandir los límites de ese proyecto hasta lugares que yo no había dimensionado.
Estamos hablando de las ciudades más importantes del mundo, como los barrios más periféricos, paisajes antagónicos.
É uma Bienal do mundo.
Nos vemos bien al sur.
¿Por qué BIENALSUR? Porque me parece un proyecto extraordinario, maravilloso, que es democrático.
Un laboratorio de ideas, una usina y que tenga como objetivo principal bajar el nivel de miedo y multiplicar el nivel de entusiasmo.
Hay que elegir esta idea de estar desorientado, de tener una nueva mirada del mundo que hace que el mundo nos pertenezca.
Es una especie de Babel. Creo que no busca tener una forma muy concreta que se le imponga a las cosas, sino que está todo el tiempo en transformación, queriendo entender el mundo.
Because sometimes you want to strive to create an art piece that has the opportunity to travel and speak to the world.
Yo al menos siento una afinidad por todos los sures del planeta, ¿no? Y una bienal que se llama BIENALSUR me parece que tiene todas las simpatías.
Una cosa increíble que tiene BIENALSUR es que abre un open call, una convocatoria, entonces es un proceso muy democrático, es una bienal muy reconocida a todo el mundo.
BIENALSUR es, para muchos artistas, es la posibilidad de concretar proyectos muy grandes.
It's very unique, very distinguished, the concept of doing a biennale in different cities of the world at the same time.
Así que para recomendar una bienal a alguien diría que intenta subvertir el concepto de bienal.
Pero hay algo que hay que agregarle a esto, que me parece que la verdadera solución es esto, el corazón, ¿sí? Esto es lo que hace que la humanidad pueda lograr un montón de cosas.
Tuve el placer di partecipare a varie convocatorias di BIENALSUR.
Il mio lavoro nella BIENALSUR mi sembra che abbia avuto una grande accettazione. Il mio lavoro chiaramente è un lavoro che coinvolge gli spettatori, coinvolge la società ed è quello che la Biennale vuole.
Je pense que c'est une initiative excellente, original, qui se différencie par rapport à tous les autres biennales.
Que demuestra que una vez más el arte trasciende fronteras a veces impuestas por ideologías, religiones, el arte supera.
Está hablando justamente de esta intención de abrir fronteras, si se quiere, y de que haya un intercambio más fluido.
Creo que en ese sentido es interesante cuando uno interviene esa perspectiva de mundo.
In 2023, I respond to an open call by BIENALSUR, which was a very rewarding experience for me.
Para mí fue una experiencia muy enriquecedora y me permitió poder...
Le succès de cet événement montre qu'il y a une aspiration plus grande qu'autrefois à goûter la création, a aimer l'art.
Es una propuesta también territorial y probablemente contrahegemónica.
Lo que me permitió BIENALSUR fue expandir los límites de ese proyecto hasta lugares que yo no había dimensionado.
Estamos hablando de las ciudades más importantes del mundo, como los barrios más periféricos, paisajes antagónicos.
É uma Bienal do mundo.
Nos vemos bien al sur.
¿Por qué BIENALSUR? Porque me parece un proyecto extraordinario, maravilloso, que es democrático.
Un laboratorio de ideas, una usina y que tenga como objetivo principal bajar el nivel de miedo y multiplicar el nivel de entusiasmo.
Hay que elegir esta idea de estar desorientado, de tener una nueva mirada del mundo que hace que el mundo nos pertenezca.
Es una especie de Babel. Creo que no busca tener una forma muy concreta que se le imponga a las cosas, sino que está todo el tiempo en transformación, queriendo entender el mundo.
Because sometimes you want to strive to create an art piece that has the opportunity to travel and speak to the world.
Yo al menos siento una afinidad por todos los sures del planeta, ¿no? Y una bienal que se llama BIENALSUR me parece que tiene todas las simpatías.
Una cosa increíble que tiene BIENALSUR es que abre un open call, una convocatoria, entonces es un proceso muy democrático, es una bienal muy reconocida a todo el mundo.
BIENALSUR es, para muchos artistas, es la posibilidad de concretar proyectos muy grandes.
It's very unique, very distinguished, the concept of doing a biennale in different cities of the world at the same time.
Así que para recomendar una bienal a alguien diría que intenta subvertir el concepto de bienal.
Pero hay algo que hay que agregarle a esto, que me parece que la verdadera solución es esto, el corazón, ¿sí? Esto es lo que hace que la humanidad pueda lograr un montón de cosas.
Tuve el placer de participar a varias convocatorias di BIENALSUR.
Il mio lavoro nella BIENALSUR mi sembra che abbia avuto una grande accettazione. Il mio lavoro chiaramente è un lavoro che coinvolge gli spettatori, coinvolge la società ed è quello che la Biennale vuole.
Je pense que c'est une initiative excellente, original, qui se différencie par rapport à tous les autres biennales.
Que demuestra que una vez más el arte trasciende fronteras a veces impuestas por ideologías, religiones, el arte supera.
Está hablando justamente de esta intención de abrir fronteras, si se quiere, y de que haya un intercambio más fluido.
Creo que en ese sentido es interesante cuando uno interviene como para cambiar esa perspectiva del mundo.
In 2023, I responded to an open call by BIENALSUR, which was a very rewarding experience for me.
Para mí fue una experiencia muy enriquecedora y me permitió poder realizar un proyecto que venía investigando desde hacía un tiempo.
How the people will be touched by the different pieces, yeah.
Tengo el orgullo de que me hayan invitado aquí a la Biennale. Para mí es un honor.
Et BIENALSUR, ils nous ont extrêmement aidés parce qu'on a une équipe, des gens qui ont travaillé pour nous avant de préparer cette expédition.
Y forme parte de esta experiencia colectiva que ha sin duda marcado un antes y después en la historia cultural del planeta.
Es interesante el format de BIENALSUR, delocalizado, no jerárquico como todas las otras bienales y centrada en el sur.
Es algo totalmente distinto en el sentido en que es una bienal que tiene una dimensión inédita, mundial, se extiende en los distintos continentes.
Yo siento que si hay una propuesta honesta, si hay una propuesta, digamos, que tenga un lenguaje contemporáneo, yo siento que podemos tumbar esas barreras, ¿no?
En fait, je crois que le rôle de l'artiste est toujours à peu près le même et les questions que l'on pose sont toujours les mêmes. Donc moi, je pose des questions qui ont été posées depuis le début de l'humanité.
En el marco de BIENALSUR.
Me gusta la movilidad de BIENALSUR, ¿no? Creo que es un proyecto colaborativo.
A different way of thinking and a different way of building things.
And it is also a unifying vision. It's not just a city initiative.
Je crois que le succès de cet événement montre qu'il y a une aspiration plus grande qu'autrefois à goûter la création, a aimer l'art.
Es una propuesta también territorial y probablemente contrahegemónica.
Lo que me permitió BIENALSUR fue expandir los límites de ese proyecto hasta lugares que yo no había dimensionado.
Estamos hablando de las ciudades más importantes del mundo, como los barrios más periféricos, paisajes antagónicos.
Es una bienal del mundo.
Nos vemos bien al sur.
¿Por qué BIENALSUR? Porque me parece un proyecto extraordinario, maravilloso, que es democrático.
Un laboratorio de ideas, una usina y que tenga como objetivo principal bajar el nivel de miedo y multiplicar el nivel de entusiasmo.
Hay que elegir esta idea de estar desorientado, de tener una nueva mirada del mundo que hace que el mundo nos pertenezca.
Es una especie de Babel. Creo que no busca tener una forma muy concreta que se le imponga a las cosas, sino que está todo el tiempo en transformación, queriendo entender el mundo.
Because sometimes you want to strive to create an art piece that has the opportunity to travel and speak to the world.
Yo al menos siento una afinidad por todos los sures del planeta, ¿no? Y una bienal que se llama BIENALSUR me parece que tiene todas las simpatías.
Una cosa increíble que tiene BIENALSUR es que abre un open call, una convocatoria, entonces es un proceso muy democrático, es una bienal muy reconocida a todo el mundo.
BIENALSUR es, para muchos artistas, es la posibilidad de concretar proyectos muy grandes.
It's very unique, very distinguished, the concept of doing a biennale in different cities of the world at the same time.
Así que para recomendar una bienal a alguien diría que intenta subvertir el concepto de bienal.
Pero hay algo que hay que agregarle a esto, que me parece que la verdadera solución es esto, el corazón, ¿sí? Esto es lo que hace que la humanidad pueda lograr un montón de cosas.
Tuve el placer de participare a varias convocatorias di BIENALSUR.
Il mio lavoro nella BIENALSUR mi sembra che abbia avuto una
enriquecedora y me permitió poder realizar un proyecto que venía investigando desde hacía un tiempo.
How the people will be touched by the different pieces, yeah.
Tengo el orgullo de que me hayan invitado aquí a la Bienal. Para mí es un honor.
Et BIENALSUR, ils nous ont extrêmement aidés parce qu'on a une équipe, des gens qui ont travaillé pour nous avant de préparer cette expédition.
Y formen parte de esta experiencia colectiva que ha sin duda marcado un antes y después en la historia cultural del planeta.
Es interesante el format de BIENALSUR, delocalizado, no jerárquico como todas las otras bienales y centrada en el sur.
Es algo totalmente distinto en el sentido en que es una bienal que tiene una dimensión inédita, mundial, se extiende en los distintos continentes.
Yo siento que si hay una propuesta honesta, si una propuesta digamos que tenga un lenguaje contemporáneo, yo siento que podemos tumbar esas barreras, ¿no?
En fait, je crois que le rôle de l'artiste est toujours à peu près le même et les questions que l'on pose sont toujours les mêmes. Donc moi je pose des questions qui ont été posées depuis le début de l'humanité.
En el marco de BIENALSUR.
Me gusta la movilidad de BIENALSUR, ¿no? Creo que es un proyecto colaborativo.
A different way of thinking and a different way of building things.
And it is also a unifying vision. It's not just a city initiative.
Je crois que le succès de cet événement montre qu'il y a une aspiration plus grande qu'autrefois à goûter la création, a aimer l'art.
Es una propuesta también territorial y probablemente contrahegemónica.
Lo que me permitió BIENALSUR fue expandir los límites de ese proyecto hasta lugares que yo no había dimensionado.
Estamos hablando de las ciudades más importantes del mundo, como los barrios más periféricos, paisajes antagónicos.
Es una bienal del mundo.
Nos vemos bien al sur.
¿Por qué BIENALSUR? Porque me parece un proyecto extraordinario, maravilloso, que es democrático.
Un laboratorio de ideas, una usina y que tenga como objetivo principal bajar el nivel de miedo y multiplicar el nivel de entusiasmo.
Hay que elegir esta idea de estar desorientado, de tener una nueva mirada del mundo que hace que el mundo nos pertenezca.
Es una especie de Babel. Creo que no busca tener una forma muy concreta que se le imponga a las cosas, sino que está todo el tiempo en transformación, queriendo entender el mundo.
Because sometimes you want to strive to create an art piece that has the opportunity to travel and speak to the world.
Yo al menos siento una afinidad por todos los sures del planeta, ¿no? Y una bienal que se llama BIENALSUR me parece que tiene todas las simpatías.
Una cosa increíble que tiene BIENALSUR es que abre un open call, una convocatoria, entonces es un proceso muy democrático, es una bienal muy reconocida a todo el mundo.
BIENALSUR es, para muchos artistas, es la posibilidad de concretar proyectos muy grandes.
It's very unique, very distinguished, the concept of doing a biennale in different cities of the world at the same time.
Así que para recomendar una bienal a alguien diría que intenta subvertir el concepto de bienal.
Pero hay algo que hay que agregarle a esto, que me parece que la verdadera solución es esto, el corazón.
They will talk from their perspective about artistic practices. We will call for artists and curation aimed at different subjective themes for the society, and we wonder ourselves what is the destination that we imagine this will have, who the public will be, and in which way we will wait for this curation to impact in any person within the community. I think this is one of the main questions in a project like BIENALSUR that will be spread through a network in different institutions, countries, and cities. There are multiple meetings with the public, and there are many curation institutions and work teams. And finally, we have something that we find and we meet directly, which are the artistic production, and the artists will tell them what they imagine about the public when they're so diverse, and considering that their voices and images, their ideas come from different places. Sara Abu Abdallah is here with us. She is from Saudi Arabia. Tommy Amaral, he's from Timor Oriental, which is a small island in the Pacific Islands, and he's from Indonesia and Australia. I will make the reference just in case for myself. It's a new country, and I'm happy to know Tony here, same as Sara. And we are also with Ajarpa from Chile. She's a neighbor, and she always comes to Argentina, so it's a pleasure to have her here. Any of them will give a presentation, and first of all will be Sara. I will make a brief reference to her biography. Sara Abu Abdallah is from Saudi Arabia, and she's a visual artist. She studied in the design school in Rhode Island, and she lives in Saudi Arabia, where she works with movies, poetry, dreams, images, and conversations, and many times she adds from the daily life codes, missions of daily life, and she exposed the constant in Hamburgo, in Singapore, in the Bienal in Chamed, at the Bienal number 12, Guangzhou, also in the art gallery, in the Wedge Up in London as well. And she will speak in English in this case, so for those who will need the translation can use the ear devices. So thank you so much, and Sarah, go ahead.
Very interesting, the many languages. So, as they already introduced, my name is Sarah Abu Abdallah. I'm from Saudi Arabia. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my practice, and I'm going to speak a little bit about audiences and who the audience are and what are the thoughts of audience. I mean, when you're an artist, you can't really control your audiences maybe and who sees it and their views. When I first started, I started with this piece. It's called Saudi Automobile that you see on the screen. And in this one, I made a performance with the camera as my audience. I was thinking of the camera as the audience. And I did this performance where that is destroyed pink. I made the work in March 2011. In June 2011, it was the campaign for women driving in Saudi. And I mean, when I made the artwork, the intention was to, because I mean, it is related to not being able to drive at the time, but it was more emotional. It was like me, just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm 21 at the time. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. But then it got contextualized into this movement for women driving, and it got quite politicized. And I mean, for the longest time I resisted, or like I still resist this projection maybe about it being maybe like an activist piece. But maybe my problem with it is that it got a bit flattened out about what it is. But anyways, this is like the first piece. After that, I started focusing on like cinema and video. So I made this one 2 years after its performances in the house. It's my most shown piece. The audience in this case was a friend of mine that was like almost a pen pal. I went back to Saudi. I finished my studies in Sharjah with the previous work, and then I went and lived in Saudi for 2 years. And I was just like always online with a friend of mine, watching art house cinema and like chatting. And then we started exchanging video letters. So this is part of this like exchange with my friend. It's like a correspondence. And this one is my most shown work. And then I go like to the next one. This is part of it as well, like it's part of the performances. I gotta do this. After that, I went on a residency in Japan, and initially I was trained as a painter, but when I discovered the camera, it was like more instant, more quick. So when I was in Japan in this residency, I started going back to drawing and painting and finding ways to make painting the same way that I used to make video. So this is how it started. And then one day a friend of mine in Saudi was doing like an artist run show, and I decided to make a painting, and I made this painting, and I loved the process so much. It's very documentary, and I found the language where I was speaking the same way that I was speaking in my videos in painting, and I wanted to go on and on and on and do it forever. And that's what I started doing. So what I started doing is like making these paintings that are like Olympic sizes. It's like, so like this one is actually like, this is the beginning of it. It doesn't photograph very well, but it's 25 meters. So like this way of like journaling and documenting and making maps, but like it goes on and on and on and on. This is, so yeah, it's like 25 meters. And then because sometimes when I exhibit these pieces, they don't really fit on the wall because it's hard to find a wall that fits them. So they started being suspended in spaces, and this started the whole series of like the one after. This one, for example, is a work I made with my mother. This is 25 meters. And it is a conversation between me and my mother, and the small elements is my cats, my friends, things that I'm interested in, things we're talking about. Me and my mother speak about astrology a lot, so there's a lot of astrology. There's like family pictures, there's like, the way that I think about them is like they're a cosmos of some sort, or like an ocean. So this is like, they're quite big. And then I started making a whole series of them. Let's see. Yeah, so this is like, I think they are like something very, anyways. The last one I made of the series is like 50 meters long. And it was like through many halls of the museum and many rooms. And in the work it's quite collaborative. My friends will come and they will cut collages with me, and then we're going to stick them. And it's like a way to tell a story or many stories, and just trying to like translate experience. Then another project that I like, series of projects that I started aside from painting, is this tomato plant in my hometown, and it's like an heirloom tomato that are sweet and savory at the same time. It's an heirloom tomato, and one day they decided to remove the farms, and the tomatoes went extinct for a moment. So I thought about it in so many ways, like how can I bring the tomato to the gallery space. I tried to find the plant, I couldn't find the plant. I tried to find seeds, I couldn't find seeds. People, when they heard that the farms are getting removed, they went and found any, like there was nothing in the market anymore. Like I couldn't find any traces of the tomato plant. So in Kunstverein in Hamburg, I worked with the museum team to find similar crop, and we started growing it in the gallery space, in like a museum space, an institution. So we started from seeds growing a similar type of tomato. In Dubai, in Art Jamil, I changed the display a little bit with like more natural light, and we started growing the tomatoes before the exhibition. I mean, this one, the last time I did this work was when I found the tomatoes again in the market. Like they came back to the market. I mean, the market as like, saying the market is like the vegetable market. And in this one I tried to close the full circle, so I got the actual tomatoes and planted them in the exhibition space. And because it came back, I mean the farmers moved and went elsewhere and started farming again, so I took the seeds and I encapsulated them in resin. This was like also like a progress of doing that. Next. So this one. They're a bit out of order. Let's see. Next. Yeah. So 2 years ago, I went on a residency in Egypt, and I learned how to weave on a vertical loom in this village, weaver's village. It's called Ramses Wisawasuf. It was a life-changing experience. It was really cool to learn how to weave, and I learned how to weave, I mean, with them. But then after I came back next, so this is what I made. It took me a month to make this one. I mean, look at it. I'm really proud of it. And then I started a series. It's not based on that, maybe influenced of that. I think there's something, maybe a trend in the art world where people started making textiles and moving towards textiles. So I did the photography series of my hometown and my life and people around me, and printed them on like woven textiles next. So are like photographs, a series of photographs, and it's like on textiles. I think this is pretty much it. Huh?
They embroider.
They are woven but machine because they are digital images from my phone.
Gracias. Luego vamos a abrir las preguntas. Sí, por favor.
Thank you. We'll open up a space for questions. If you're okay with that, we will continue with Tony Amaral, that, as I said before, he is from Timor-Leste and he's an artist. He developed his passion for arts by painting protesters' banners in favor of the independence of his country. And in 2002, he co-founded the Free Art School Morris, and he created a platform for Timorese artists during the unrest. And it was a social role contributing to the campaigns in peace. And he studied in Australia and in different countries where he exposed his work, and he will tell us some things about his practices. Thank you.
It's good to be here with you all discussing themes of building uncertainty, the theme that has shaped my entire life. And I hope you all don't mind if I can read through all my notes. Some of my earliest memories are filled with uncertainty. I grew up during the brutal Indonesian occupations of my country. This violent period, we lost over 100,000 Timorese lives, nearly a third of our population at the time. Growing up under occupation made secrecy and distrust the norm in our community. Family life, most children, including me, was stressed and harsh. But those memories of uncertainty and fear are also mixed with happier ones too. Especially my mother showing me how to draw. I love to draw so much. Slowly I also taught myself how to paint. At some point I got good enough to be trusted to paint murals in people's homes. I became quite popular actually. People in my community would call me to stand in our neighborhood, would organize demonstrations against Indonesian regime. They would ask me to paint protest banners. Back then, I didn't always understand the meaning of the words. I was copying, would simply paint that they asked me, things like Viva Timor-Leste. Sometimes I joined demonstration myself. I remember one time having to hide, unable to go home for 3 days after a protest turned violent and the military raided our homes. When the Santa Cruz massacre happens, I was very still young, much younger than the student protesters who were killed that day. Witnessing such a trauma as a child, art became my escape, a way to process that was happening and share story with others. This event really makes the beginning of my journey, using art as a political and social expression, as a way to engage with that I saw as a broken world. Now when we talk about art, especially in a place like Timor, we ask, who is it for? Artists create for different reasons, to express something or make sense of things. But who do we imagine seeing this art? How do we want our work to touch them? After Timor gained independence in 2001, we did many peace-building activities through art, like peace murals. Timorese walls had long been covered in resistance graffiti during the occupation. Che Guevara's face was a very popular icon back then. But our peace murals were different. They were responding to a period of civil unrest a collective call for unity at a time when our nearly independent country was divided. Not long after I got the opportunity to study fine art in Australia. When I returned to Timor years later, I held my first solo exhibition, Peace to this Troubled Land, at Artemuris, our only available space to show paintings, which is crumbling roof. This experience reminded me of how different Timor was from other places. This was nowhere to hold an actual exhibition. Even today, we have no national art gallery. But what struck me most at that exhibition was who attended. It was mostly international NGO workers. Hardly any Timorese people come. And those who did would stand outside, not even comfortable coming in. Our own community didn't feel art space belonged to them. I asked myself, why am I hiding in the studio, painting on canvases about my people's suffering, just to sell to expats? That's when I began questioning why art should be confined to galleries at all. Street art, I realized, was truly democratic. It can belong to everyone, old people, kids, students, shopkeepers, farmers. No need for money. You can't buy a wall. No requirement for a dress code to enter. No special knowledge needed, just eyes to see. The art exists there on the street, along with everything else in the chaos of daily life, where people work, struggle, and survive. Street art lives outside where it can breathe and grow. People add to them, touch them, photograph themselves with them. Some even help create them. This is what I love most, helping communities feel ownership over their shared spaces. Timor-Leste's complex identity, blending indigenous traditions, colonial history, and global influences, lives in my work. Trauma is a big part of our collective memory in Timor. And sadly, in many communities around the world, trauma is happening in real time. But art can be a way to heal, not just to point out injustice, but to create spaces where people can ask questions, connect with each other, come together in solidarity. Street art doesn't speak to any one audience. It is everyone's. For as long as it stays on the wall, for anyone at any time, they choose it. A mural in a busy bus terminal might spark a conversation between an old lady and a young student about forced evictions. A mural under a bridge might remind a young student on their way to school of their cultural identity. Like myself, as a young boy painting poster banners, today's youth face the future heavy with uncertainty. Climate crisis, genocide, growing fascism. Street art should speak the loudest to those young people who are inheriting this chaotic world, meeting them where they stand, reflecting the reality, sharing the new ideas, always questioning. To understand our audience, to paint with empathy, to practice solidarity with them. Of course, as an artist, we are interested in beauty, but true beauty comes with acts of connection, offering a moment where our collective imagination can blend to create new possibilities together, to hope together for a better future for the next generation. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Tony. Now, we'll hand the floor to Voluspa Harpa, who is a visual artist. As I said, she's from Chile. She has a BA in Arts, Magister in Visual Arts for University of Chile. She has held exhibitions in many countries in America, Europe, and Asia. She has participated in BIENALSUR since the first edition, 2017, and in the 31st Sao Paulo Bienal, in versions 3 and 8 of Mercosur Bienal, in the 5th Bienal of Shanghai,
and in the 6th Bienal of Havana. She has also held individual exhibitions in Argentina, at Malba, at Untrev, in the solo project at Feria Arco, and she was the representative of the Chilean pavilion at the Venice Biennial in 2019. She is also going to show us some images. I don't know if they are already there. That's from Sarah. You can talk about Sarah's work. Okay. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here again. I believe this is not the first page of the presentation. I would like to begin by telling you, or in fact, I would like not to focus on my work, but on the strategies. I think a lot of who receives my work when I'm thinking of it. And even though I come from academic training where painting was the matrix language for my thinking, in the year 98, 99, 2000, I came across some documents that the US declassified about Chile in 1999-2000. And I started reading these documents. I was already working on the issue of historic storytelling in South American countries. I had lived in several South American countries, and I found this condition of censorship of these documents. It was interesting that thinking of the problems we have today, who is the receiver, who is the public of our art, and how artists receive things from the world. I started doing research on these documents, trying to read them. I found this a condition that there were crossings out, some words that had been deleted, and I tried to paint them at the beginning. I tried to represent them to continue with the language of painting, but I found out that this was political and historic material that was telling the story of Chile. But then I continued with the story of Mercosur and all the dictatorships. I found all this scratched out information, and I felt that the story of my country, again, given back by these American intelligence agency, I found this aesthetic impact from these documents, and I started thinking, what can I do with them? Obviously, from my visual artist background, I said, okay, this scratched out document is a document that has gone through the regime of image. As you can see on the left bottom corner, you can see that there are full pages that have been deleted, where you can only find the condition of secrecy declassified. And I found that, okay, well, now that these documents have been deleted, they had left the narrative text condition, and now they have become image. And in this idea of what can I do with these documents, trying to insert this material into the world of art, I started transforming them into books. I started transforming these images that are called the Library of History, where people could take out a book for free in return for a symbolic transaction. I believe that you are going backwards. Never mind. Who is it? Is it me or is it you? I want to go backwards with my images. Please, further back. Thank you. So what I did was, I realized that 10 years went by after the documents had been declassified in Chile, and I realized about the context, about the censorship. I realized that this information was not being part of historic retelling. I believe that this continued to be information that countries are not taking into consideration. I decided to make books, to circulate them, thinking that from historiography, from my academia, there is a resistance to go into to deal with these materials. Since they were not books, I was going to turn them into books so that people could have access to this type of information, so that they could suffer this aesthetic impact and historic impact that I had to suffer when I reviewed them. And the Library of History is a work that has been through many editions. We are now going through the 8th edition. We have a strategy where the document has not been modified at all, but it has only inserted into a book format so that people can circulate them. People can take a book for free in return for responding to the question, what are you going to do with this? So I find it interesting, both the fact that they have never become books, very few have been turned into books, and the fact that they have been censored, that censorship has entered them into the regime of image. I'm thinking of the future. A book is an object that elaborates barbarism. These documents account of the information of this barbarism. I then continued with the rest of America, including Mexico. I continued to read because the content of these documents spoke about international policies that were not related to the sovereignty of countries, but they were policies related to full regions. Therefore, this was drawing a map where the intelligence document was talking about the non-sovereignty of the countries that it was referring to. So people were carrying home a book in return for an answer. It was a free answer, and it was a way that we could do something that is related to these complex times we are going through. Maybe now this complexity is getting faster and faster, but geopolitics has always affected our peoples. These documents speak to this geopolitical turmoil, and circulating these books, having people answer this question, what are you going to do with this, was a way to realize how we subjectively respond to these macro-historical problems where we feel powerless. What can we do faced with these huge geopolitical processes that we feel really expelled as normal people? This was the Library of Non-History. This is other interventions, the Sao Paulo Bienal. What I did there was, in terms of content, I understood the history of the Southern Cone, and as you may know, there was a coup d'etat in 1964. And ever since 1964, the CIA started operating in Brazil towards the whole of the South Cone region. We, the investigators of the Bienal, we started looking for the Brazilian documents to account for how CIA and the Brazilian government started elaborating plans for destabilizing all of the democratic governments in the region. So this proposed a spatialization that was no longer a book but a scaled on one. Rather, it was an architecture that would speak to this spatial dimension as a kind of floating archive where the people would visit the space and would have to face these documents that we have not read. Many people do not want to read them, and that others simply do not have access to. So in this case, the strategy was to generate a sensory, physical, kinetic experience that would help you embody this strategy. This was kind of another strategy that I always use. So on the one hand, the idea of information and non-information and psychological resistance to accessing that which we don't know or we cannot know, which is not integrated in our narratives, which is always information that reasonably we reject. And on the other hand, there's all these strategies of works related to spatializing and transforming this experience into a physical, corporeal, sensory experience. As I say, they are strategies of seduction. And there's this Malba exhibition, which states a final hypothesis in 2016, having reviewed archives from 17 countries of the Americas, Central, Southern, and North America, and seeing how certain types, how the course of history changes for countries. So I reviewed 47 deaths that are suspected murders, which are intelligence operations of presidents, presidential candidates, ministers of state, judges, and high clerical hierarchies. This exhibition becomes physically narrative for that history of Latin America. So one way of doing it was, well, do you know there are hundreds of thousands of documents? How do we build the image that there are hundreds of thousands of documents? Well, all around the museum we hang these strips which were related to information about the coup d'etat, ranging from the highest length to the floor, where we of course we are always doing this type of gestures, the information that was most acute about the destabilizations of government, they were placed at eyesight level for anybody who would like to read them. This is interesting, and it is a problem in the work I do. How do we generate this experience by the spectator between a reader and a viewer of images? How image is something that may be read more eloquently than text, in the case of these documents, especially. So these were narrative strategies of spatialization. I understood with time that given the huge pile of secrets that our history is about, I understood that I was not working for the viewers of my present time, but that I was working for viewers of the future, of the far future. This was my consolation. I said to myself, at some point in the future, 200 years from now, I will have made somebody's life easier to those viewers who are 200 years from now. This work is aimed not at us, who are still enshrined by these stories, but we're going to pave the way for those who are in the future. These works, in some way, intend to engage in this dialogue. Thank you. I believe that we could go on and on about your work, but I would like to hear the public, and also I would like to hear if you have any comment to make, or if you would like to ask questions to the other members of the panel. And I would also like to give the opportunity to the public if you want to ask questions to the panelists.
Bueno, es ya cercano. Sí.
Hello, I had a question for Sarah regarding the image of a work that she showed for the pink car. I wanted to know what type of reception that work had in female audience. If they had the option to elaborate on the intention of that work and what repercussion it had.
And it was broken and it was like abandoned. I think in a way I wanted to save it, but it also saved me at the same time. We had this relationship where I saw something that is broken. I wanted to paint it in pink because, I don't know, pink is feminine, I guess. So there was something about fixing it, but not really fixing it, because there was a sense of hopelessness that I didn't know how to like remedy a broken thing that is broken to that extent. In terms of reception, I mean, the reception was big, but in the media. I don't think I ever discussed the artwork away from the cause, away from that women weren't able to drive back then. Yeah. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Diana had a question, and they will give you the microphone now. Thank you. I wanted to thank the three of you, and just to highlight something that's some way at the table. And I was talking to Barreto and Nick Mooney's table yesterday regarding this political dimension of the work, because in the three cases there's an inscription that's very clear. And in particular, well, each one of them will refer to a specific time in terms of this search in a concrete way, even though this work can transcend borders and can access other realities as well, and to shed light on other important matters as well. But I wanted to invite you to think of this question that we have in our invitation to this table that has to do with in which way you imagine how you can interfere with this horizon of expectations that the audience may have with each of these works. Because, for example, Tony was saying, okay, each one of the murals is aimed at a specific public, but it has a specific message for a segment. So in the case of Evoluspa and Sarah, there's a perspective that's different, and each one of them is seeking to intervene in a different way in the community, but maybe not in such a segmented way. Maybe I'm mistaking, because Tony was not so much segmented as I'm remembering it right now, but I wanted to invite you to speak a little bit more about how your imagination and your creation works, how to intervene on the society or the person that will be receiving your work.
No problem. So I think one of the things that was a big frustration for me for many years was in terms of expectations and in terms of like being pigeonholed about this idea of like being a female and being Saudi as well. There's a lot of projection from the West when I'm showing my work in the West. That is quite limiting and quite frustrating, and it's also very I don't know what word to use, but maybe demeaning. There's something that flattens your work and who you are and makes it one-dimensional, and in this way for the West to feel good about itself by making others look bad, by this narrative of oppression. You're oppressed and you're there's a lot of that. This is like for many years, like whenever I'm in a dinner conversation, the most question I received was like, what is it like being a Saudi female artist? And I think it was really frustrating, and I think the work that I'm making at the moment that is hyper personal, that is just like me saying like, I'm entitled and I'm allowed to talk about my life. I'm entitled to talk about my pets, my dogs, my cat, my friends, my family, my hometown, things that really matter to me. And in this way I'm resisting this projection of what I should be interested in and what I'm supposed to care about. Your turn.
But can you explain, like make it more clear?
The question.
About
the question? Okay. You should, Diana, if you can summarize. Reiterate. Yes.
Sí, aprovecho tener otra vez la palabra.
Yes, I will take advantage of this time just to comment with Sarah that those are your interests. My question is not related to, my question is considered with that paragraph from Pierre Bourdieu about what the mandate is, like the project created by the artist and how it responds to this social mandate. It can be softer, can be harder, but there's like a social horizon that somehow is the one that's impulsing us. In your case, it's appearing as well. So on the other hand, I wanted to tell you that when your work was shown in Rio, people was well surprised, not in your case, but to find so many Saudi women at the exhibition, and they were fascinated for the dimension and the layers that they found in your work. And that makes your history, daily life, and any narrative that's enriched. So that's like a feedback of your work, I guess, that you are obtaining it. So I guess Tony's question was more like, in which way in your artistic practice? And there's something else that I wanted to ask Tony as well. It's something that surprised us when we began talking to him about Timor Leste, is that you work collectively and individually as well. And the way in which you work is not so common. And if it is, the way in which you share a project and how you add your part in this puzzle, I think it was interesting to bring it here as a comment.
Community that it's built by 5 young people after the independence. So we used the old Indonesian museum to become our art school. It was taken by the government 3 years ago with a big machine, destroyed the whole building and burned all the paintings. But we produce 300 young students, male and female. Everything is volunteer. We young people, we collect those children that who parents not like don't want to look after them, but they just really don't focus on the school. They come to us, and we always ask them, what do you want to do? They always say, we want to join the class, do a drawing. So we give them a paper, and then we say, we give you homework, come back tomorrow, show us the drawings. This is to most of our students, because in Timor, people do that to come and live with us, because our government see us as a young people with the long hair and long beard living together. They worry that these people, what they do, living in the government's house and doing, just making art and with long hair, with break rules, and now they they have a lot of young people live with them, how they buy food and give it to all these kids. But we make a lot of work. No? We not just only paint. We teach people how to do a farming. In our art school, before, we have a big farming at the back. We grow vegetables and everything. We only buy rice. But everything else is from our garden. Chicken, eggs, and everything. So we teach people not just only how to paint. We teach them to be humans, how to be respect with another humans. Art is something else. Art is, if you connect with art, that is a bless. That is something that is given to you as someone who carry the message to her. But we want to teach people the kids how to draw, how to paint, and also how them respect other people, how they respect life itself. And so everything we do, we run our own galleries, but we share some space to teach students. We have morning, afternoon, and nighttime is a time for us, the people who live there, to use the studio to paint. At daytime, we teach the young student to do drawings, and like we have all the timetable. Every afternoon, we all know what to do. We go to the garden, we walk in the garden, and then after dinner, who do the washing. It's like a college of art, but it's something that our government didn't recognize, that we do a lot of our work for our government. We change a lot of young people's mind, because in Timor, every area, I think I saw the sister was here, she was living in Timor, Mana over there. Timor was like every place or every area there's always problem. There's a lot of young kids that didn't go to school, they like to fight, and drinking is a problem, because not like in any other country where you drink, you need to have a license to go and buy. In there, you buy drink, is like you can buy a bottle for yourself, or a cigarette, you just buy just one cigarette. So everyone smoke. So this is the issue that we want to face, because we don't want to only accept young people come to our place to learn. We also teach them how they respect themselves, like discipline in a good way. So because we do everything ourselves, sometimes we do a mini market, sell their work, give them money, they go back and give to their parents. And some parents will think that they go and steal the money. But then we ask them to bring the parents to our school. So this is what he or she do all the time. Never go home, but here do work, make artwork. Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's okay. My kids can stay here. So this is something we already make different. We already change something in there. But in Timor, like, because it's problem everywhere. I think same like anywhere else. There is always problem, but also there is always a place for young people to go, which is people like us. We make art. Our job is, to help other people, other people who feel that they connect to us. So we share the skill that we have. We teach them. If they want to become an artist, it's fine. But if it's not, it's okay, because they don't know how to paint, but they learn the discipline. They learn the respect. That's all. Thank you.
I'm going to try to focus on the question after listening to you. I don't know. In the process that I showed to you about the creative process, I've also ranged from an individual creative process where my subjectivity was irrelevant, and in my final works is not longer relevant. During the last years, projects have become quite complex, and They suggest more complex topics, so I need to engage other colleagues. This relates to the hardcore of my work. For example, syndemia, which we showed in 2023 with Eugenio in BIENALSUR. It was related to some works where we interviewed many people and we created a repository of information, analysis, and data. And later I was afraid that all this would be blurred or deleted. Finally, the work remains as documents, things that people told us. All the documents and repositories, the legal cases that we compiled between 2021 and 2023 are no longer online. I was certain, because of the work I'd done before, that all of that would be deleted. And I had the urgency, together with many other people, to create some information to prevent deletion that I knew was coming, as in all of our social processes that are complex. Regarding choosing of the spectator, I separate them into tiers. There's a contemporary spectator where what I like about art is its power. The power art has to face complexity of the world. This is the art that I personally care about. That may account for the complexity of the world. But then there is a whole process. That's the other power of art, which is the educational power, which intersects through times. So we know that from this complex and rested present, we are building layers of understanding for people who will come in the future. I believe this is a didactic and educational power that art has. We are able to be in different times simultaneously. We can relate to the past, we can synthesize the world of the present, and we can establish knowledge for the future generations. I can see that receivers are complex in terms of timing. I'm always thinking of these different types of receiving, not only from our contemporaries in terms of how to explain experiences or the information to sensory and aesthetic information, but using aesthetics as a didactic tool. Always I am thinking of the far future. A question from Estrella. Well, thank you to the three of you. I find it very interesting, each of your standpoints. Let me tell you something that is certainly quite Martian. Also, I always think of that when speaking of the publics. I was thinking of it when I heard Tony speak. We sometimes forget that there's a part of art which is consolation. There's a part of art that is consolation. We don't need to do hyper-intellectual art or hyper-complex art or think of the publics. Tony was saying it very well. Children will draw. If they can become artists, it's okay. Otherwise, it's okay too. So the idea that when we think of art receivers, we are still thinking of our hierarchies. So what we need to do is break these hierarchies. Who cares about the future? Not as artists, of course, but in general, who cares? There's something that is consolation. What Tony was saying has really touched me, because it was the idea that there are no artists, one artist but several artists, and we'll see in the future. Sarah was always saying this about the stereotypes, but I was looking at those cloths of several meters, and they were comforting me. So I found this extraordinary subversive perspective. When I was looking at this work by Voluska, which we saw together at one of those biennials, I wasn't thinking of the documents. This work was giving me other type of comfort. So we really forget about that. And for viewers, it is important because it's a way, this type of comfort is a way to not have stereotypes, that we have done away with hierarchies, that we are at another position, which is the position of Tony's children who are learning gardening and at the same time they are drawing. So this is something that really touches me, not about contemporary art, but this old lady that after the pandemic came to the Museum of Prado for the first time and started crying before the painting of the Meninas. She had never seen it. So this part of comfort for us artists, historians, curators, sometimes we neglect it, and I would like to come back to it because you were the three of us speaking of this comfort, of this consolation of the viewer. And this is the subversion of the perspectives. And I've really liked your presentations, and I'm really touched by Tony's project and Sarah, who demands that everybody think of what is expected of a female artist in Saudi. This is the stereotypes that comfort brings, and the comfort doesn't think of any nationality. So thank you for the three of you. Thank you for the questions, thank you for your comments, and thank you for your participation. I believe that whenever we can introduce the problem of publics, we all become publics, even those who produce or who work to show to the public our cultural production. So this is more than interesting that maybe in our break that we have now, we may continue to talk. And for the moment, we are closing this panel. Thank you so much, Sarah, Tony, and Voluspa, for sharing your experiences with us. See you in a while. Tony would like to say something else.
I'd like to say one thing. Thank you for BIENALSUR that already invite a very small island somewhere far away to take part and participate in this Biennale. Thank you very much. With all my community and my family, my friends, artist community back home in Timor, we'd like to say thank you very much.
Un placer que...
A pleasure to have you, the three of you here. I would like to tell you that the next panel is going to be moderated by Francisco Lemus. It's entitled Artistic Practice Between Costume Design and the Environmental Perspective. So after a while, after a small break, we're going to come back here. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
from pollution, particularly because Africa, like I said, is like a waste container for Europe and other countries. So we can no longer do whatever we want to. We have to propose something different that may impact on the awareness of people so that we can make decisions. I don't know if radical decisions, but to be able to use and not unlimited and unaware.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you both for your presentations. You've been highly stimulating. I'm taking it off for a while because otherwise it's going to be difficult. They've been really stimulating and quite visual presentations. Before I give the floor to the public, I would like to ask 2 questions. We have a little time, so I'd like to ask the public to participate. We also we can continue to discuss before the final presentation, of course, but during about this final presentation, what type of public programs, with that basis, the sustainability are done in these works whose backbone is sustainability? That is a very interesting question for us, curators, managers, because we want to continue to think of this dimension change, how we can approach different publics, so public activities that are sustainable and that are reflecting around this. Well, there are several aspects. The first is the participatory conscience. Visitors and the people who pass by participate in the material production. Also, there is an aspect that is very important, which is, so for many artists, production. This is confronting the work that we must privilege at most, because nothing replaces being faced with a work of art. It's this presentation and all the pedagogical support that we have today in sites and art sites and museums where there is intermediation that is done specifically to transmit this message that can be difficult to understand at some points, especially in contemporary art, where there are messages that are not always evident. Great, thank you so much for explaining this. Then regarding your presentation, which was quite captivating, all of the collaborative work that we have done with these other artists, I would like you to tell us a bit more, because we've been looking at photos that are part of perform actions or some activity related to that. How do you think of that interaction between landscape, costume, and what type of performance is done around that? Because we have a problem that we have in Senegal. It's the environment issue. Every 2-3 months, we create a work to complain. We go to a place and we create we bring a spirit to tell men to stop consuming without conscience, to stop polluting. And since we have beliefs that we are quite mystical, we believe in spirits. In order to impact in the African consciousness, we need to call the spirits to us to impact them. This is to impact on Africans to ask themselves, who is this person? Who is this character? And what is this for? So we are engaging the public. Why? We try to create these characters. Well, they stay for a long time. We exhibit them in different areas, different places in my country. But there are several photos that are not done in Senegal. They are done in the United States, in Ghana. We are called frequently to certain areas so as to complain about the ecological materials that have an impact. It depends, a week, 2 weeks. So they work for a week and then they take some pictures on a photo session. Thank you so much. The form of these works is speaking to the youth and to the people who are viewing them. They are forms that are emerged from the African culture. Yes, they are characters that have 4 or 5 meters high. Usually these are the spirits that are this tall. Since we have this traditional education that speaks to us about these spirits have no body, but they can use materials to materialize. So we try to use these materials, these terrible materials, to speak to the people, because when the masks go out in Africa, they go to communicate and educate. So we have this form of education in Africa, the spirits and masks. They are there to educate and to raise awareness. We have taken this support to raise awareness. The objective is to raise awareness to African people so that these products, these terrible products, if they have an impact on the ecology, so the waters are impacted and the air is also impacted and the sea is impacted, unfortunately, because we see that Africa is the deposit of the world. We receive all types of waste. And in order to complain about that, we use the spirits to appeal to young Africans. No, most of the times I work with photographers. I don't use words, but I use materials. I express myself with my art. Yes, I have a team. I work with many people. Okay, we can start with the questions. Well, I would like you to explain a little bit what you have done for BIENALSUR in 2023, and also how this bright dress that you were doing, how it finished. Well, the biennial enabled us to show and to say that the sea is not a garbage collector. So we had no support to show the impact that the sea is suffering. So we're giving the possibility to show to the Africans that the sea is not a garbage collector, because some African people believe that. Some things that are no longer useful to us, we throw it into the sea. So it was the possibility for us to explain that, to show that the spirit of the sea had gone out with all this rubbish, with everything that we throw there and we drop in the beaches and on the sea. Any other question you would like to ask? First of all, I would like to thank you both. And I would like to reflect on the topic of the sea, which is essential to me. We think that the sea belongs to nobody, and that the sea is only there, and we throw into the sea what we believe that goes nowhere. So the reflection is that in Spain we have some cubes where we throw the clothes that we believe are going to be recycled, but those clothes are sent after many intermediaries to Africa and end up in the sea. And the same here. If you have those bins, it's the same thing here. As I was saying, Africa is a deposit of the world. We believe that we Africans need these things. We don't need that. They bring everything here and to our seas, and people who are not aware, they throw everything on the sea. In Africa, the sea is dirty because there's a lot of plastic and a lot of production and contamination from the West. It's not ours. So this mass of contamination, we receive it without awareness. We are sorry, but we are suffering when we say Africa is not clean. It's not that the Africans are causing it to be dirty. It's rubbish, but we as Africans, I used to make clothes, but when I realized about all that rubbish, I was forced to denounce that, to show that I could not follow this trend to continue with the fashion. Every 3 months, every 6 months, there is a new collection. Every end of collection, we throw everything, and we bring everything to Africa. We don't sell it. We don't donate it. We impose it, because there is a kind of policy that's behind, and the population is not aware of this. Maybe it's easier. I'm going to speak French. When I read this documentary on TV, I thought, well, what can I do? But I believe it is quite interesting what you were just saying. Naturally, the idea that we should create in order to destroy. That was the idea. The phrase that you have, Dieter Habler. There are many objects in the world, so it's better not to make any more objects. I believe it's quite interesting what you were just saying, because it's the idea of living with nothing, or with very little, with something that would stay there for a long time. That's absolutely different from what we are having nowadays. I cannot explain that in French. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm going to speak French for Philip about the question of immateriality of art. It's an issue that's not quite new. Yves Klein talked about this even before. The issue is that there is a crazy aspect of contemporary production, that if you observe that there are old cars, for example, And there are new cars and very old cars, because from a certain point in time, the industry realized that they didn't have to make cars to last for a lifetime. They had to introduce in their production this aspect of obsolescence, foreseen obsolescence. So this is surprising to me, because to me, yes, I agree with Eva Jospin that it's natural. But this brings me back to the topic of rubbish in the oceans, etc. Because it's nothing to do sculptures in marble that are going to last for a long time, the same as old cars. I have a very old car, and it's good for me because it's lasting. I will have it until I die. How can we rethink this art that is made today, where we hear a lot? I do art. These are installations that last for a few days, and they are made. And this is quite surprising to me. Bonimem, for example, it's done like a huge event, natural event where people can dance and be there, have a good time, but the carbon footprint is the hugest on Earth. So how can we rethink this idea of art, where we can think of materiality while considering this aspect of obsolescence? This is also important. In fact, this question is leading me to think of the public. The statue that we see on the public parks, for example. Today we have this reflection about the common public, of a work that is ordered for a specific place, ordered to an artist, and who it is destined to remain forever, in fact. So, if we remove it, even if the artist dies, there are the heirs that are going to file a complaint so that the works remain there. So the common public is thinking of contemporary art or temporary art. Artists have works that are going to stay for a specific time frame. This is to enable recycling, and everything poses a problem of copyright. And I'm thinking you have this phrase of copyright. We were the first to implement this specific legislation in terms of copyright in France. So there is a sacred aspect of the artist's creation which is untouchable almost. When the artist conducts a work that is bought by a museum, for example, this is also a thing that exists in France. There is no possibility from the moment you buy a piece of work to remove the collection. We, Exanvire, remember this. In Pompidou, there are 50,000 works. What does this involve? This requires us to build a new area to restore and conserve these works. So this is causing us to increase our collections. We know that the most destructive aspect for the planet is construction. All of the building aspect, the destruction of buildings, is what is most pollutant in our planet, besides the plastics which are visible. This is invisible. So in fact we see that we build a new wing to conserve the works. To conserve them for how long? Because we have 150,000 works. He was saying it's 10,000 more times than in the 67. So how many do we need to have more? So this is a question that we need to ask ourselves. How, in fact, we are more and more in the planet today. Each of us produces stuff we, each of us consumes. So can we digest all of that? So this is a true problem we are faced with. We have one final question here. Thank you for the presentations. I have one more reflection rather than a question. I see that, well, since we all have this trend to judge by appearances and massive consumption is, well, we are urged to buy the latest car, the newest garment, the newest phone. And there is this idea that advertisement sells, that electric cars have come to save the planet, but in fact they have come to save the automobile industry, because production of batteries, coltan, etc., the Congo mines, and also thinking of this idea of economic growth that continues to be effective, that the final destination of a country is the GDP growth. But how many more people are walking or cycling and not by car? So growth is lower in those cases. So this is a reflection, and we need to know how art, because our art also requires financing, museums, exhibitions, biennials. How can art fight and put a stop to this impulse of economic growth and the economic interests and advertising? It's rather a reflection. And how can art put a stop to this perception that economic growth should be the goal? To me, the problem is capitalism, the aesthetic. We need to review the aesthetics, because the fact that we have galleries and museums, why is the artist categorized? An artist is a representative of God on earth, to raise awareness, to participate, to remind people, but the fact that the artist is not there to please the rich, I don't know. Art that I can see that is shown in galleries and exhibitions is not art, that is programmed art to please the rich. But is it art that entices citizens or that pleases everybody? No. It's the art that is in museums and in galleries is made for the wealthy. It's not done to raise awareness to the population. That's not art for me. It's other things. Artists needs to be there to raise awareness and participate in the development of the city, not to please a certain minority. This is why we are there to create galleries, to manage those works there. No. Works are not to be sold. They need to be accessible to everybody. They need to speak to everybody. But we don't need to put a price on art. For me, the problem is a problem of putting artists on museums and galleries. In my opinion, that's another form of art. My art is not for sale. It's done to raise awareness. All artists should raise awareness on their work. Their role is to raise awareness, to show the path, to show the way. That's an artist to me. I don't believe in galleries or in museums, because what does it give me? I need to pay in order to see photos, to see works of art. It's useful to enclose some works there. As BIENALSUR proposes, this is art, because this art is utility art. The art that is in museums and in galleries is not art. It's another form. is a certain type of aesthetic for a certain group of people. Precisely what defines art is that the definition is that there are different approaches, all are interesting, and precisely there is a huge danger to make art as an instrument. We don't need to ask art to do this or to do that. I believe that artists each has their own conscience. They produce their works based on what they are, what they want to say, and nobody should give them orders, so that their creations should be totally free. This is important today, freedom of creation. And today, as we see that we are going through a situation where there's increased totalitarianism, we need at most be able to preserve freedom of speech throughout systems. One of the key questions that we are going to be faced with in the next few months and years, especially in the US with what's going on, this is what's important, to ensure for every artist their own conscience and their own works.
Everyone, I don't know why I'm standing up, but it's a way of being more professional. And because by standing up, it's needed to introduce you to Marta Minujín and Estrella de Diego. We will see their brief resumes. You all know how to read, and that's something good. And they are well known. This table, I think we couldn't have a better title than the one that Marta is waking us up or sending messages. Art, art, art. It couldn't be any better to close this conversation sequence that we've been having since yesterday. And this table with this subject and with this question that Martha's work has, in which the production, public, and the intervention in day-to-day and in contemporaneous time is ongoing, and the possibility of activating works and thinkings of being in Marta's world. And Stresha, she is a historian, and she's a curator, a star curator that has been thinking since she was young the genre and also the performance and all the ways in which art is influencing life. So we consider her a good panelist. So I will be the moderator just in case. But here we will hear them, and we will begin with a video. But the video will be just on the background, and they will just occur. I simply wanted to thank BIENALSUR, especially my friends Eliana and Aniba, because I feel super privileged of being sitting here with Marta. I said, Marta, I remember that my first trip to Buenos Aires, I was fascinated with Marta, Jorge Roosevelt, and we were remembering the events that she was doing and so on. So I felt fascinated by this woman, this artist, and someone said, she is a friend of Andy Warhol. And I said, okay, I just fell to the ground on her feet. And to be honest with you, I followed her work. And I felt so happy when she got an award with Premio Velázquez or Velázquez Award. She was the first Argentinian woman, but then after her, many women came. So I want to thank her, especially Marta, for having this conversation with me. But you are Stresha, of course. I will remind you both that we have a translation so that we can have it in here and streaming, so you have to speak close to the microphone. Hello? Yes, yes. Okay, so after this brief story, this morning, Marta, we were talking about this utopia, about these crazy people that are doing crazy things in this world that's changing all the time. And this morning we were talking about post-pandemic time. And here we are living in a New York time, and everyone says that they were friends of Andy Warhol. But Marta was his friend, actually, and we have the New York Marta. So we can go like to the beginning of the story, right? Yeah, but there's always a debt abroad. Before, 20 years ago, they were asking, who was that? I mean, the one that was with Andy. And now, much time went by, and they were asking, who is that is with Marta? It's amazing because it's so immediate that the story doesn't exist anymore. It's good that that story doesn't exist, because Misinski was Horacio's daughter, and now he is her father. So I think that there's like a change, and that change is good. So who is that? That is with Marta. That's how I will refer to Andy now. And I think it's a good script. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that New York idea? Because when you got there, you were like an alien that was getting to Mars. So, no, but first I lived 13 years in New York and Washington, but then until the 1974. And then I came back to Buenos Aires with the military government, and it was terrible. But I was coming and going from and to New York. In one of those trips that I was coming back, I stayed here for like 15 days, and Andy was my friend in the 60s. Those are the videos that we are watching for that New York time. No, this is Montreal. Okay, what comes afterwards is that when I got in here, I was always interested in the public and how to get to them. That was my proposal since I was 20 years old, that all people will feel included, and that museums wouldn't attract only people that knew about art or studied art or liked art, but to get anyone that could come from outside. So it got me thinking, because all art galleries were dying at that time. And what happens now is that art markets made it impossible to forget about galleries, because art is a consumption object now, and it's for everyone. My idea is always to do free work, as I did Pan Dulce's Obelisk and Lobo Marino from alfajores, and people ate them and changed them for the real ones. The Statue of Liberty. We have one work in Ireland as well. I was interested in getting a situation and to get to people. When I made the first Parthenon, people felt terrible because I saw the incinerator and we have to throw all our books there. For example, a medicine book that was written in Russian was forbidden as well. Everything was forbidden, movies, cinemas. So I decided to bring to Argentina this Parthenon symbol where the first democracy was built. And then it was like a documentary, right? No, many years later. I think the public will remember that more. When the military went away, people gave away books for free because of the enthusiasm that people felt when the military was leaving. So they were using these forbidden books, and then libraries had their books hidden there, and they were packing them on plastic. And it was an incredible anecdote because one of my friends, we had to pay for the structure. And one of my friends was dating Franco Macri, who was powerful at that time. So he brought him to my workshop and we convinced him to pay for the structure. And we began with this Parthenon, and we got the books and everything, and then he left, my friend, and he said, I won't pay. So we got to one floor there in the tower, and I said, if you don't pay and you don't sign this check, I will throw myself out of the window. And he signed. And he gave me $25,000, and with that I did the complete Parthenon. But this documents Parthenon was different because they invited me, and all the companies put $1 million. They brought books from all over the world, forbidden books at any time, from any time. And there were books forbidden in Spanish that were Caperucita Roja, and they put it Caperucita Azul. So they changed the names. All the books there, the ones from Guantanamo, there's a book that seems like a special word because they eliminated everything that it didn't want it to be included on the book, but there's a movie now.
Sobre todo, ideas políticas.
Censorship shouldn't exist because ideas open people's minds. So what was the idea of the Venezunda, that people could get into a city? Because I tried to reflect Buenos Aires with a room, with a normal couple in bed, neon tunnel, which was Lavalle Street, a place where women at that time could get makeup, a giant woman full of makeup, and people were going through that situation and they were living art at the same time. So it was like exclusive place. So women that were going to shop were doing like 3-hour lines to get into the place. And it's going to be in Madrid right now. Yes, and I think that it's going to be centered in more performance practices. But I think, Marta, that you changed as well. Your works are politics and the post-pandemic work and art all the time. And I think in those cases, you force public to turn into a performer. There's like a change. To live art, you mean? Yes, but public has to be doing what... Well, I remember that it's like a game in which you are not living art as public, but you're also turning into some kind of performer as well. Well, happeners, I like that more than performance because, for example, the football stadium in Uruguay, Peñarol, the director of the art museum, this will sound weird, but the director of that museum invited me to do a happening. I did many of them in TV here, so I said I wanted Peñarol football stadium and money to get extra people. So I went in the TV channels and I was able to get 20 fat women that were really big, 20 fitness men with big arms, prostitutes, motorcyclists, and couples. And the couple had to get themselves covered in clothing. And in 20 minutes, people came there just to find out what that art was. And so they, the security guards were picking up women with their own arms, and the couples were covering themselves in adhesive tape. And then from a helicopter, I threw like 100 chicken. And then I threw lettuce and powder. They kicked me out from Uruguay and I wasn't able to come back for 20 years. A painter came in and he strangled a chicken and he painted with its blood. That's why the Animal Protection Association forbidden me as well. People took chicken and they were taking them home. But I think most of your works have an acid humor, and I think that's one of the features. It's humor, but your public work, of course, are political as well, but I think they're political in a way like colorful politics. It means that everything is, now that you're talking about Fellini, I never thought in that absurd humor that we can find in your works. Of course, and that's the absurd humor. that include those elements that we cannot understand what they are doing together and why they are together. But it's not only your happenings, also when you are doing your matrices, which I love, that color game, that shape game that's unexpected. I think they have something of happening, of things that are happening, right? Yes, when I won the award, people got to get in there and throw onto them and survive, and that's why it was named like that. I want to remind you that we have some videos, and I asked them to stop them. The one that Gardel was beginning. If you can put that again, and in the meantime, what Marta will tell us. That work was Carlos Gardel del Fuego. Gardel died. He died in Medellin in a plane accident, and he burned. So I went for the biennial in Medellin, and I did a 17-meter high Gardel. And since Colombia was a cotton producer, I put cotton inside it. And it was really high, and there's like a neighborhood there, and they were singing tango song called Volver. And people got impressed. Everyone was singing, and I burned it. In the first trip that I was talking about, I went there to get Gardel, and that first trip to Buenos Aires was mystic to me. And I, like a long time afterwards, I knew about Gardel. It was like 30 years ago, I don't know. But when did Gardel die? Like in 1939. Well, before those years. Oh, you were so young. Well, not so young, but I'm saying. I was kidding, Marta, saying that I knew in my first trip, and I was fascinated with you, but I tried to get Gardel in Recoleta, and he was not there. No, he's from Chacarita. There's nothing. Nothing. And tell us, maybe, are you putting the books, Parthenon, you were talking about before, the first book that you didn't hear? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this part. I already told you everything. Okay, but hold on. Maybe you can tell us, because to me, I think this is a performance more than a happening, because you are making like distinctions between them. Well, movement, because I always try, like in there, I try to use a crane and then count the monuments of the world. I mean, I've been telling you a lot already just to change. Then I had the Statue of Liberty, but it was laying down because they were welcoming people before, and now they are kicking them out. So, but it's a work, we can say, like in contemporaneous terms, that it's collaborative work, because people were helping you at that time. Yeah, they gave away books and then they were taking them, so. But there's no past. We don't remember about the past, and now we're talking about those collaborative works that are happening. You can see in 1983. That's why I was saying that going back to this participation and who is that man that's with Marta Mujín? Well, Andy Wardoff. The idea of no one will remember that you were doing that type of art before. I think no one will remember. In United States, the massive public does not remember me anymore because the information is so fast. So we were able to reach our goal already. That Sure Velázquez. It was massive. it was like even pop. But now people in the street, it's impressive in the US. Just the ones that know art will know me, but there's an art public. All of us, what type of public do we have? We don't have like the sports public, it's the art public, it's like an elite. I don't know how many people in Buenos Aires or in Argentina, a lot of them. But we don't know how many, maybe 1 million? How many? 100,000? That's just a few. 100,000 is just a few. I believe it's a little further more. 200,000? Well, all of you are lovers of art. Something that strikes me a lot and that we've discussed with Diana is your works. Why are your works public? Why are they done in the street? Diana, and I have discussed about it. Because I force them to participate. Not, for example, now on the 21st of June, I am opening outside of the Proa, in homage to the La Boca neighborhood, the Tower of Pisa lying down, half of its size, covered in mineral water, because water is missing in the world. So it's going to be covered, all of it, with bottles with a little mineral water. So we are going to open it. This, you know that Paris Lumière is coming here for the first time. Well, they are all going to enlighten the tower. So people are going to go through the tower and they will be able to watch a movie that I made. So when they leave Pisa, you land in Proa. This is what the people see. So you walk inside the tower, a tower of 19 meters long, no, a bit more, 30 meters, and you watch the movie and you get out. In the end, you all take a bottle of mineral water with you. That idea of participating, yes, they always bring something with them. That's very good. Yes, I agree that the company does it on purpose for advertising. Of course, they swap the materials for advertising. Yes, that's what companies are for, to swap materials for advertising. But the idea is that people should live this experience of going through the Tower of Pisa. People from La Boca who may have not traveled a lot. Well, if I see a Tower of Pisa that finally goes down, I will want to go through it. It's not so down, the real one, I mean. It only falls in the fiction built by Marta. If we talk about the mattresses, you have taken the mattresses all over, but I think they are important because the towers kneel down, everything can lie down, finally. So I believe that this is a very important aspect because this takes you back. I believe that you don't like that, but it takes you back to memories, tactile memories of childhood, etc. Sometimes you talk about this. I believe you don't like to talk about that much. Yes, I went through painting, surrealist painting. Not surrealist, but metaphysical. And then I went through informalism. You know, the idea of painting the wall disappeared. With formalism, we started doing it on the floor. Then I started adding cardboard reliefs when I was in Paris with cardboard boxes. Then I thought, once in Buenos Aires, I thought I'm going to add a mattress. I took my home mattress and I did my first work and I put it on the structure, and now it's in the Cologne Museum, the Museum of Pop Art, that mattress of mine. So from then on, I once went to visit to
there was Baltingeli, everybody was going to this exhibition in Paris. I was around 21 years old. I asked to do the destruction. I did my first happening. I put all my works there. When I was going back to Buenos Aires, I invited artists to work on my works so that they would imprint their works, and then they would all destroy them. And then I lit fire on them. And this coincided with a festival that was held in London on destructive art. It was held in London a year later. So I went to the Fast Bazaar to a field, and he was telling me, why don't you paint the mattresses in colors? And I started painting them in fluor colors. So the idea is that people spend half of their times of their lifetime in mattresses. So I then started making the mattresses myself. 50 years I stopped, and then I started again to do the mattresses in 2007. Now I'm doing rooms full of mattresses, but all painted in fluorescent colors and huge mattresses. And what do these colors mean for you in this context? Or what do you use them for? What do they mean? Well, the last sculpture I did was called Emotional Sweet. I like the colors of the sweet marshmallows, candy, and I was really influenced by Walt Disney's colors. They used turquoise, lilac, yellow, acid yellow, fuchsia, all the fluorescent colors. So I work with Walt Disney's colors, but on mattresses. Yes, but those colors from the candy, pink, turquoise, yes, I was thinking with the video of bread, the bread tower, these mattresses were like very edible. So, yes, you can eat them in bed. They are colors that can be really used. They can be really chewed. This is why they are called candy. There's art there, because you can join in these mattresses. Not only sleep on them, because they are a paradox. You cannot start sleeping on the wall. You can lean on them, but you feel like eating them. You feel like owning them, chewing them. Okay, I'm going to invite you to have a bite. She's going to eat all of my workshop. No, I'm a neurotic and I'd like to eat everything, but I don't think they are quite edible. Can we watch the video? Yes, the bread video. The Tower of Bread. That was in 1981 in Ireland. It's quite strange because I need to find somebody who is excited about the idea. Many years went by between the Tower of Bread and other ideas, but I've done an obelisk lying down, an obelisk of panettone. I've done all of these in the years 78, 79, 81, and then many years went by. Then after the document, I did the Big Ben in Manchester, but with books always. And then now I'm doing the Tower of Pisa. The Marine Wolf. You did a work on hamburgers. Yes, I was going to do it, but I couldn't do it. The Statue of Liberty, lying down, made of burgers. Marta was going to. You see how I'm making it lie down? This is the place where James Joyce wrote the Ulysses. And then what happened with that bread? The people took it. They distributed it in the churches. Because it was one day. We hung it at night. It was like 9,000 packs. That was Pierre Restandi. This was also done with something that Bloomberg invited. No, he invented Pierre Sani and all the critics were there. He did this type of work of activism. He took everywhere in the world the critics. That was very interesting. And I was trying to find you in interviews to see what you were saying, and you were talking about the mattresses as something that was related to your family history. Well, you were telling it. I didn't invent it. How strange. The textiles, maybe. Yes, the textile. The idea of the overall that I use. Not the mattresses, but yes, there was always cloth. Your personal relationship with cloth. Yes, I would live above the factory, so I would see people cutting the cloth. That's very interesting. I noticed also in your work when you were laughing at me because you were saying that I wanted to eat the mattresses because they are fascinating colors, because they are deep inside all very material works to be eaten. So the action of feeding is a maximal action of caring for people, or works are aimed at protection. So it's like a paradox because they are humor works. On the one hand, they are very acid, but at the same time, they trace a line of affection with the spectators so that they come in, and when they are in your own land, they become members of art. Yes, always. So this line of affection, do you look for it? Does it just happen? I love people in general. So you try to have it because you can so you can trap people? No. No, I really like people. So do you want to bring them to your own field so that they become happy? Yes, you're right. Engage them. People go, many people go to all the works I do, everywhere. Because for the Manizunda, even after 60 years, people are still going. And they do a line to get in there. What is the work that is missing for you? The Statue of Liberty lying down with fake burgers that people would take home and exchange for true ones in McDonald's. I wrote a letter to McDonald's a long time ago, and they answered, and I kept this letter, and this letter was bought by the Guggenheim Museum. They haven't funded it, but I'm close to it. I may be able to do it. The first large project, because I've done almost all of them. I'm missing the football made with dulce de leche and this Statue of Liberty with hamburgers. Please tell me about this football with dulce de leche. Please tell me. It's in a football field, a huge ball covered with the Bauquita candies. The crane would pick them up and change them. The places, there would be like 5 cranes, like playing football, and then people would bring the candy with them. Were you saying that you are doing to do performances? Yes, I'm going to work on a find your. It's a phone app where you can find your soulmate. It's a phone app where you answer certain questions, and that gives you a color, and this was done at the Puente de la Mujer, and you go there and you find the person that answered the questions the same way as you did. So where do you like to go on vacation? In the lake, in the mountain, in the beach? So if there are there is a match, you go there, you go to the Puente de la Mujer or the Reina Sofia Museum. So what do you like to eat? Are you vegan? Are you meat eating? So what else? What other things are you going to do? Inflatable sculpture and the candy. the emotional candy. And what work and my friend Diana was asking before, what is a work of art that you still would like to do and you don't know the Statue of the Liberty statue, but you already have it? No, I want to do it in New York, inside Armory, which is it's very expensive to lease the place. There was an artist, Botansky, who did cranes with clothes, and the cranes were exchanging the location of clothes. Well, didn't he come here? Yes, to the biennial. Yes. With Christian, we opened the museum, the Immigrant Museum. He did the first intervention there, and we did a curated visit where he was visiting different locations, and of those locations he chose the Immigrant Hotel, which was almost floating in the air when he saw it. The National Library in Mexico Street. He did flying books there. It was a site-specific work with daylight, quite atypical. He died quite young, yes, on July 14th, 21, on a patriotic day for the French. And with Christian, we also presented the one of Files of the Heart at Technopolis, Montref Art and Science. People had an EKG done, each of them, and then they were shown the results. The sound of their heart is stored in Nagashima. The problem was that when he came, he had 13,000 heartbeats stored. When he came to Argentina with the popularity of Technopolis, it became 3 million. So we're always saying, at the moment, if at that moment the world came to an end and E.T. came in, he would think that there were more people from Argentina all over the world than in the rest of the world. You are talking about some pieces that may take place in one or other location. So the pieces change, right? I'm always surprised about this. When you are telling a story in Berlin or in Dublin, it's not the same as telling it in Buenos Aires, right? So, how do you trade with this? Or don't you? Or do you just let it happen? In other countries? Sometimes I'm being called from other countries. I need to take a pill because I have a headache. I have a headache, so I need to take a pill. I'm sorry. I'm being called from countries to give to do them. In Manchester, I was invited, and I had this idea of taking from the big band from London and reproducing it, and doing it as if it were taking off and flying, going through the space, then coming through the fields, arriving in Manchester, lying down and covered with political books. Because in Manchester, there's a university, that's the University of Democracy. That's where with Griselda Pollock teaches. Is that in Manchester? Well, she does commuting. Okay, so they've selected all the forbidden books that were there, and in fact they were enemies of Margaret Thatcher. Those from Manchester, because with the electricity, I don't know what happened, but people lost their jobs. So I paid the debt, but the double debt to Margaret Thatcher. And then in Greece, I paid the Greek debt to the Germans, to the double Angela Merkel, who was just exactly as Angela Merkel. Have you seen her? It was impressive. Let's make a break so she can take the pill.
Abrimos a la gente un poco. Perdón. Yo creo que hemos visto que
We have one video left. We've seen the bread, the Parthenon, the New York, and Carlos Gardel. No, all of them. There's one missing. The document on cancer, which was worthwhile seeing. You can find it on Canal Encuentro. It must be there, right? Do we have anything else to tell? Yes, we're going to open to the public because I'm sure people have several questions to ask you. You need to ask something that nobody has ever asked. And what's the prize for them? What's the treat? Hello, Marta. At the beginning, you were saying that you like your art to be for everybody, for the baker, for just anybody, for people who don't necessarily go to a museum. Do you have any opinion of street art? Street art? Yes, I do. It's an expression, as any other, an interesting expression. I come from the design district, Miami, where everything is painted with works of art. People can view them. Maybe they don't understand the meaning of the mural, but there are most sculptures, arts or works of art that are where they can really understand it. I love that. I don't know if you can see me. Hello? I'd like to ask you, what can you tell the new youth artists in a context where it's most normal to be alone, to be isolated, where a certain sense of collectivity is lost? If you are in the digital era, you're immersed there. As you imagine you do the social media, it's impossible to be alone. When I did pandemics in Instagram, people were joining me. I did the work, and I was asking people, are you following me? Yes, I'm following you. And people continue to answer me. I'm always accompanied by you. Sometimes the teens can have a life that's totally digital. It's terrific, just with the phone. The phone has become the heart of everything. At the same time, it's good. People in Africa who cannot read and write can talk and say, I want to buy a ticket to Paris or anywhere. People who are illiterate, illiterates can exist. Somebody who could not speak English, you have the translator on the phone. So life is much easier. Aren't you a bit sorry that there's the end of the contact with the materials? No, I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic that there's these possibilities. You're being watched by 350,000 people who can give their opinion. They can see what you're doing. People can buy online. This is so simplifying that you have more time for yourself. You can speak on the phone. When I was in Paris, it was very expensive to phone Argentina. A letter would take 3 weeks. Now people are not longer writing letters, right? It's a pity. Yes. Well, all of the messages that you send, all of the conversations you have, you could put them in writing. That could be done. All future time will be better, not worse. Taking into account this volatility that you're talking about, there's something that you said at the beginning that almost nobody from the massive public remembers Andy Warhol. Think of the works from 30, 40 years ago. There's still censorship, there's still wars, etc. So from 50 years, 100 years from now, of the works that you have done, of the works that you will still be doing, which of the works would you like people to remember? No, not necessarily do they have to have information of the material works I've done. 100 years from now, the Parthenon of documents and the other are among my best works, because Melesunda is fine, but it's like walking inside a city, as I said, but it's much more profound and interesting to look at the Parthenons. Thank you. The political project of Parthenon. In 100 years from now, there will continue to be censorship. Yes, in the States, now, there's also censorship of books. I was going to ask, would you do another Parthenon? Yes, I can always do Parthenons, but not as big as the one of document. It was too huge. Like the real, actual Parthenon. It was a dream. I don't even realize how to do things. They are so expensive, so huge. I don't know how I got there.
I think it's better to do it and to leave the Parthenon. But the Greece Parthenon is great. And it's like a challenge. And how much can it cost in Madrid? It's a monument, okay. And it's easy to lay down. Each city has something, but I always lived, and I wish I lived in the obelisk in Brevich, for that to be my home, and to live there, and to go upstairs on the inside. It's always been empty. Does anyone have another question or not? In here. I wanted to tell you that with the new work that I'll come to see, just right across it, if you can speak louder. Last year with 15 friends, we painted 6 boys looking straight forward, and they will be just across your work in front of Isla Maciel. And on the other side, there's people that are painting great 800 murals, and it's communitary work. It was nice. We remembered of you because anyone could come and help us finish it. And there are 6 boys that are saying, here there's no this stigma of Isla Maciel, and they are looking just as at your work. You will see it. You will be able to come in and to get into the tower. I will be coming next Saturday, so I will tell them. It's huge, 70 meters and 100 meters high, so thank you. I love it. Hello, Marta. I have a question. I was thinking of the materials that you use, that they are like daily objects. How do you get to think? To do like the obelisk? Was that the panettone? I don't know what you were explaining about Gardel with cotton and everything that had. But what about the rest? In 1979, we got the military, so the idea was the penis of the military laying down. And then, as if people were eating them, that's pan dulce. And it was Christmas. We were just about in Christmas time. So we have anecdotes. And there were 30,000 sweetbreads, and people were coming to get them, but they were fake. And they changed them for real ones. They got to go to this place where they sold them, and they would give them away. So when the obelisk was going down with the crane, they went and they were just running and they hung on the obelisk. So they could have died. And I got into the crane, and the firefighters came and they threw water on them. So Marcola got a heart attack, and the ambulance came to get him, and I got to get into the crane because he was asking me to get some too. The idea was for them to eat the military's penis. And what about bread? Of course, everyone, they got to get the sweet bread and they had to exchange it for a real one. It's the same as a bottle of water. It's the same. Thank you. Okay, we're done. We are asking you to stay for a minute because this is not Marta's work, but we will give you, and it's the first act for this 10th anniversary on the 5th edition of BIENALSUR. We will give you the cartography of BIENALSUR 2025, which is delayed already, so you can get to think what you will see in each places, because you will find the places, but it doesn't say what you will find. It's like a novel. No, we are not saying that now, but you will suspect that we will have Marta's work, Tony's work, Dulcie, and for the different artists that were present in these days and the presenters of this, and for many more that were just on the screen or that weren't able to attend because of the time difference. So we always say we keep on being biennials deep south. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.